All right, Scott, we got something pretty exciting this week. We got the chance to check out EA Sports NHL 24 preview presentation, kind of giving us a layout about what's going on with this year's new title. And we're going to start off first with the release of the new cover athlete from the Colorado Avalanche, Stanley Cup 2022 champion, Cale Makar. I think this was a great choice for a cover athlete, Scott. I love seeing defensemen on the cover. This guy doesn't even really play necessarily like a defenseman. He's got so much offense in his game, but he does play a two-way game all the way, and I think it was really nice to be able to see him kind of grace the cover of this year's game. Well-deserved for sure. And honestly, I just love when they pick cover athletes. They don't quite have the, some other games may have a curse tied to the cover athlete. I found NHL's never been that case. So it's just nice to see them showcasing players from around the league, especially players like Cale Makar, who definitely deserve this honor. But honestly, outside of the cover athlete, man, we are getting some new stuff in this year's game. They let us know about a few different things happening, and we're going to start off here with the exhaust engine. And this is based mainly around the goalies, and this is kind of a cool little mechanic that they've thrown into this year's game that I do appreciate. I'm interested to see what this is going to be like, especially when I get that controller in my hands. What do you think about this exhaust engine?
First of all, it is a little hard to kind of wrap your head around it without the visuals and the controls that we
Yes.
were able to see, but we're not able to show precisely at this moment. So you're going to have to bear with me a little bit. There is, as you say, the goalie fatigue system, and that's really the focal point so far. There's a bunch of kind of moves they're trying to do to upset what's used to what the standard kind of goaling is, or as you've kind of explained to me, the glitch goal situation. So hopefully
Yes.
this fights some of that. But in any case, they've added a whole new meta as to what works and what doesn't. There's over 50 new save animations. So a little bit of what you'd expect, right? Some more variance over time and tiring actions. So you'll see that fatigue kind of affect the sluggishness of the goalie. And there's a few things that really add to this tiring effect, and that would be shots on goal, of course. Time the team is in the zone, and the passes across the crease, which of course is your scoring opportunity. You got to imagine diving from left to right gets quite tiring after a while.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I've never been a goalie myself, though. I do have 10 years of experience, not in goal, but there's a lot of things you can do to kind of recover from this pressure, and that is clearing the puck outside of the zone, of course. If a play comes down to a stop and you do have to do a face-off, that's going to reset this. If there's a timeout, any sort of play stoppage that involves a penalty, that would make sense. You have to give your guy a moment to catch his breath, and hopefully you're back to full. But it's worth noting they said not icing. Icing does not count, so you
Yeah.
can't just dump the puck and reset. And that's good because that would be part of the meta.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's kind of the nice thing is they're trying to improve the system of the mechanics behind the goalies, and they're making the goalie position a lot more approachable for players new to the series and even players that have played goalie in the past. They're trying to simplify things here, but that's where this, like you said, with the exhaust engine brings this sustained pressure system, that something we've never seen in NHL before. Essentially, as soon as you enter the offensive zone, there's going to be almost kind of like a little ring that forms right in the middle of the offensive zone, and every shot you get on net is going to start to build more pressure up against the goalie. And that actually is being displayed by showing kind of each section of that circle being filled in for every shot you take, and you'll actually receive a bonus if you fill up that meter while you're still in the zone. And like you said, if the defense can get it out for more than 5 seconds past the blue line, we're going to get a full reset on that particular mechanic. But depending on the gameplay, you can find yourself on a power play in the offensive zone for a little bit of time, taking a lot of shots. And I like that kind of push to be able to get that extra little bonus for your shooting and your passing when you do get that meter completely full. And on the flip side, if you're on defense and you let that meter get completely full, you're going to find yourself a little more sluggish, a little bit harder to get those passes out of the zone. They make you work harder to get that. And that kind of relates to how realistic that is on the ice. Teams carry momentum, especially when they're in the offensive zone. So the defense has really got to battle to be able to kind of beat this new mechanic that they put into the game. And I like this. These are two mechanics with the exhaust engine and this new pressure engine that just allows you to kind of work one and one together. And it just, to me, makes sense. And this feels a little more realistic overall.
It does. I think of those times watching hockey where the announcer is just losing his mind after a couple seconds in the game and a couple too many passes, and it's just you can feel that pressure rise, and that's what I want to see in an NHL game. one of the big systems that they showed off was the physics-based contact, and they really want to seemingly change kind of your attack vector, and it's just really interesting. There's body hits. You can make them really heavy by pulling the stick back and then pushing forward. That makes sense. It's sort of similar to a shot in the
Yeah.
older games, but you do have a shove, and that seems to be the new change from what I see. You
Mhm.
can kind of use a shove as a preemptive offensive attack, and that's where it gets a little weird and dicey for me. Because although it makes sense if somebody's coming at you, you just kind of put the arm up to maintain control of the puck, and something I've done through the years. But this is a little bit more of a real shove. You really kind of disperse the player. But the biggest question I have, and I'm not certain if it was very well described, I don't believe so, but
No.
if that stick is controlling a shove, what's stopping that from doing a wrist shot? Because that's my old, albeit outdated, knowledge on the game at this point. So I'm wondering how that control works out.
Yeah, they like I said, we both saw the same video clip, and the player was carrying the puck over center ice on offense, and a defensive player approached him, which looked to be about someone that was going to maybe lay a hit on this offensive player. But the offensive player was actually able to shove the defensive player down right before he made contact, which in older games would have been considered an interference penalty. And that, so to me, it was just very interesting to see that we're starting to get to more of a realistic simulation of what hockey is really like. You have the ability, if you're stronger than that defenseman and you're carrying the puck, to knock him over if you want to. And I can appreciate that, Scott. I think that's pretty cool. Again, they didn't give us a ton as far as visuals on how that all works and what we're going to see as far as controls, but they did let us know that they have started to lay out the controls in a bit of a different manner. I imagine the skill sticks and some of the stuff, the NHL 94 controls will all be options that you can choose from, but it sounds like they've revamped the kind of the layout of the controls to allow you to take, a little bit of the, you know, uh, how difficult it's been in the past to maybe make some of these skill maneuvers, especially for newer players. And it sounds like they're going to turn into more of a one button kind of control, which is cool. I can appreciate that because it just kind of allows people that maybe aren't as versed in the NHL world to be able to jump in and pull off some of these moves that you get to see on TV when you're watching these NHL games. So it's cool to see them make it a little bit more accessible. And in that same vein, they're actually going to make the goalies a little more accessible. They talked about how they're trying to make goalie controls a lot more approachable. Just like in real life, not everybody plays goalies. There's a lot less goalies than there are skaters. So they want to be able to make that position in game a lot more approachable for people and have a lot more fun. And this is where the instinct system actually comes in with goalies. They called it the game within the game. So if you're playing as goalie, you actually get the option. There's going to be some visual kind of assisting things to help you on screen for you to be able to decide when a player's coming down with the puck towards you as goalie. You get to kind of guess where they're going to shoot the puck, and based on what you choose, if you guess it right, you actually get a bonus in helping to make that save. And on the flip side, if you don't guess it right, they're actually going to hit you with something that kind of makes it a little bit more difficult, or at least a modifier to make it slightly more difficult to make that save. So it is kind of a high risk, high reward type situation. I'm not sure if this is something that's going to be able to be toggled on or off depending on which you like as a goalie. I think this is going to be a new system that probably has that type of option where you don't have to use it if you don't want to. But if you do and you play a lot of goalie, I think this could be a really rewarding mechanic. And like I said earlier, it is the game within the game. So, as you're playing goalie, you're watching your team score goals down the other end of the ice. You don't have a whole heck of a lot to do. So when the action does come down in your end of the ice, you have the ability to kind of have a few more options, and it just makes it just that much more engaging.
I never really considered being stuck just as the goalie because it's been a while, granted,
Mhm.
since I've played these games online. So I imagine that would be much more high intensity. But the idea of taking a guess, that's what goalies do, really. This
Mhm.
isn't soccer, but this is similar. You have to guess either glove side or not. And that I can imagine that'll fit well into the fatigue system.
Oh,
You're
for
going to
sure.
gas your goalie out if you keep making the wrong call. And that makes a lot of sense. It actually looks like it drives the intensity way up.
Oh, definitely. Well, Scott, some of the changes coming to the different game modes we're getting in this one, we're seeing some pretty cool stuff. We're going to see World of Chell's going to be bringing a battle pass, which I know some people don't necessarily love battle passes, but I think in this particular setup, it's going to work. From the small preview they showed us, it looks like there's some pretty cool stuff you can unlock on the battle pass. It's going to let you deck out your skater, customize them to however you'd like. I think that the ability of the customization zone has really changed this year. They're allowing you to kind of be a lot more personal with your choices. You can really tailor your look to how you want to kind of present your avatar online to everybody else. And that's something that's really cool. I mean, everyone likes variety, especially when it comes to creating their own personal character. So seeing those changes coming this year is really nice. I mean, we're getting a lot of changes in the creation zone. We're getting the battle pass. We're seeing some changes in EA Sports Hockey League with a 16 game now playoff, which is really cool. EA Sports Hockey League is my game mode. That's the game mode I enjoy playing the most. And the playoffs before were kind of like a 3-game, if you lose, you're out, or if you lose, you get one chance, but after that, if you lose again, you're out. Here, this is more laid out like the NHL playoffs. You got to win 16 games to win that Stanley Cup. And in EA Sports Hockey League, if you win the league, I mean, you can hold those bragging rights over a lot of people. And the fact is they've said they've changed the presentation even of that kind of Stanley Cup presentation at the end of EA Sports Hockey League. You win that cup, there's going to be something kind of custom for your team, so you really get to enjoy that moment when you get there. And I like that. I like the ability to be able to really grind out those games with your team and get to that end and climb that hill. I'm sure it's going to be difficult because there's a lot of great players out there, but I think this layout is just going to be more realistic to how we do it in the NHL nowadays. You know what I mean? You need 16 wins to win the Stanley Cup. So in EA Sports Hockey League, we should need 16 games to win, or 16 wins to be able to get that cup in that as well. For me, that's the biggest draw. I'm a huge fan of that particular game mode, and I'm just really excited to be able to jump in and kind of test out some of the changes in these game modes.
It's really interesting that that's going to perhaps crown you as the Stanley Cup winner. I wonder how long that's going to... Are they going to put your name out everywhere? Is it going to be my gamer tag? Well, not my particular one, but... And how long does that displayed for? Is it all year? There's still questions that I really want answers for, but it is interesting, the idea of putting your fame out there, putting you in the spotlight. I like it. I have a split kind of feeling about this next detail. There's battle passes being added to the game. That's one thing. It kind of makes me roll my eyes, but at the same time, I see a lot of value to that. But there's also the addition of a storefront in this game, which is going to introduce, luckily, some in-game currency, grind points they call it. But I suspect there will be paid currency model as well. That's generally the purpose of these kind of things. They're going to include custom characters, some different celebrations. I imagine a lot of different kind of items for your character. And what they said was unique player classes. I'm not sure exactly what that means in terms of this game, but the idea that there's something behind a paywall potentially that is exclusive and it affects the gameplay, that's what gets my back up a little bit. But how do you feel about this? You are by far the veteran here.
Well, you know what? When you hear storefront, the first thing you think is, well, I don't want to give you any more of my money, right? But they like you said, they introduced grind points, which essentially is going to get rid of what we knew as hockey bags in the past, which is essentially were just loot crates that you earned for playing in game. It wasn't something you had to purchase. And you just got, a random batch of equipment. It may be equipment, it may be a celebration, it may be stuff for your arena, whether it be sounds or lights or something like that. There's quite a few items in these hockey bags. And now with this storefront and these grind points, they just allow people to go in and purchase the stuff they want. Things that you want to add to your arena, things you want to add to your skater. I mean, I could open 50 hockey bags and not get a single Buffalo Sabres thing. For some people, that might be okay. For me, not so much. I'm looking for the Sabres stuff. So being able to jump in now to this storefront, which I imagine will have a rotating list of items, especially for some of the paid stuff when it comes to using your real money. But the in-game currency, I imagine there's going to be in-game events and things where you'll be able to earn some extra currency to be able to get in and get some more exclusive items and things like that. This storefront environment is something new for this game, and I'm not entirely sure what it's going to look like completely. I'm intrigued. I think as long as we earn enough in-game currency, we don't need to spend our real money. It'll be a model that will work for everybody here.
I'm a little worried that it's going to take a not serious approach. And although I do like some of the features we see in other games, I don't want to see the silliness brought to this one. Can I be a mascot on the ice?
Yeah.
There's just an example, which maybe that's fun for some people, but I like a serious tone.
Scott, the last game mode we're going to look at is Hockey Ultimate Team. There's been a few changes here, but the biggest one is going to be the new Hut Moments, which is essentially allow you to jump in and play different moments throughout NHL history, like Gretzky scoring 50 and 39, things like that. Different challenges that are going to allow you to jump in and play these real moments that have happened, and you get to choose kind of how that history gets rewritten or just redone, you know what I mean? And that's a cool thing. I think having the ability to kind of jump in and play these nostalgic moments from hockey games we may have watched in the past, games our parents have watched and told us about, that's kind of a cool addition to this game mode. It's going to kind of freshen things up for Hut this year, and I think there's going to be some really cool rewards that are going to follow with that. And on top of new things, we're also going to be talking about new presentation of this game overall. We're going to be looking at, I think it said 75 plus new goal celebrations, and they're calling it kind of the flex moments, or being able to flex your own style. And I mean, we've had goal celebrations in this game for a few games, and you can pick all different kinds of ones. There's a lot to choose from, but it sounds like we're going to kind of get another layer here. We're going to be able to customize how we celebrate on the ice and how it's presented to us visually, kind of fully custom, especially in some of these different game modes like World of Chell and EA Sports Hockey League as well, where you get to actually customize your arena and things like that. So being able to see these different changes, I mean, every year we're going to get new presentation changes, but if you've watched any NHL recently, you've realized that now when you watch it on TV, we see different things that we never used to see. We see digital boards and ads and things changing all over the ice. It sounds like we're going to be getting dynamic boards as well in this game. So it's not necessarily going to just be ads. It's going to be showing us information about the game, whether it be the score, time on the clock, time on a penalty kill, something like that, which is really cool, because that's just something that's going to be right there in your face. You don't necessarily have to take your eyes away from the action to go look up at the scoreboard, which has never really been an issue, but it's nice to see they've addressed things like that. And again, they're just trying to keep it as current as they can so that the product we see on TV is very similar to what we're going to be playing in this game. And that's something I think all players are going to appreciate. And honestly, Scott, this presentation overall has given me enough to be like, you know what, I'm kind of excited for some of these changes. I mean, some years you just feel like you're just getting, a few extra buzzwords and we're changing this, we're changing that, but you don't really feel the change. And just from the gameplay we were shown, I think there's going to be a big change in this year's game. I think there's going to be some definitely new mechanics that are going to add a new dimension to your NHL experience. And for me, I'm excited to kind of get my hands on this one when it finally releases.
I haven't played hockey in a very, very long time, so I kind of slip out, real life hockey, that is. Yeah. So I kind of slip in and out of interest, but I have to say, and it was designed this way, of course, but watching this presentation, by the end of it, I'm psyched to get back into hockey again.
Oh, it's exciting. I mean, this one's going to be dropping I believe on October 6th is the official release date. And if you do pre-order before September 25th, you're going to get a whole bunch of extra stuff. I think you're going to get a Cale Makar item. There's a Hut Power icon pack, 4,500 Chell points. There's 3-day early access, which I know a lot of people are going to be interested in, and that might be worth pre-ordering for. And there's also going to be dual entitlements. So if you do pre-order, you're going to be able to play it on your current gen plus old gen if you have both, which is always nice because you can't cross play between Xbox One and Xbox Series X, but Xbox One and PS4 can play with each other, whereas the Series X and S can play with PS5. That's just kind of the way it's been for the last couple of years since the next gen console have come out. But you can appreciate the fact that you have the ability to pick up both titles depending on which console you have, whether you've got one or both. That's really nice to see. We're also going to be getting World of Chell Battle Pass, I think ×5 XP modifier.
That's right.
So there's some good stuff here in the pre-order, and it's worth it. If you're gonna play this game, you might as well get the pre-order because you're gonna get a couple of really good bonuses there. And that for me is pretty much it, Scott. They only gave us so much information, so much gameplay, but like you said, it's exciting to see kind of the changes they made. There's some bigger changes happening this year, and I think that's really what's going to pull the existing player base back in, and newer players to this series jump in and see some of the changes and make it feel maybe just a little bit more like a simulation, a little less arcadey. And, as far as EA is concerned, Scott, they've got titles coming out all the time. The next title they're going to be releasing is coming up. It's right around the corner, August 18th. We're going to be looking at Madden 24. So if you're a football fan, I know we've been talking about hockey this whole time, but Madden is the next one to come out from EA. And then shortly following that, we're going to be seeing NHL come out as well in early October.
It was outstanding. Thanks so much for joining us here. It was a fun one to call, and we will see you soon. For all of us here at EA Sports, stay safe.